Let's just clap on 3. So this will make it easier when I'm editing to sync up the sound. Okay, 1, 2. Bienvenue and welcome to the Sarris Wheel. This week we'll be doing something a little bit differently in honor of the channel recently getting 100 subscribers. I've invited my friend and professional chef from the hit YouTube channel Cooking with Tristan to the show. Tristan, welcome.
Hello.
First of all, it's nighttime for you and daytime for me. Can you explain to the viewers why that is?
Yes, I currently live and work in Copenhagen, Denmark, as a chef, working for a man named Klaus Meyer, who I worked for in New York City at a Michelin star restaurant called Agern.
Well, let me start off with a softball. What is your favorite dish to cook?
Oh man, how long did you do research to come up with that question? Cooking Thai food is always going to be like a soft spot for me, as well as, you know, we're both from the South, so cooking Southern food every once in a while is always going to hit a special place too. So I can say with certainty I don't have like one favorite thing, but my heart kind of weaves around with the atmosphere and with the seasons and with the weather. Yeah.
And I imagine a part of it is about who you're cooking for as well. That's probably what you just enjoy, cooking for other people and the challenge of finding the right food for the right person.
Certainly, and there's a big difference between cooking at home just casually and cooking in a restaurant setting where you have different constraints, and whether that be owners of the restaurant or whether that be the person you're living with that you're cooking with, it's a different balancing act in both scenarios.
Tristan, the movie we're going to talk about today isn't a complete diversion from Wes Anderson. It stars the very good Anya Taylor-Joy, Nicholas Hoult, and Hong Chow. But for this channel's purpose, it also stars a very precise and measured Ray Fiennes. In the menu, he plays Chef Julian Slowik. Slowik? I don't know. Tristan, is
You're
it
the expert.
Slowik or Slovik?
I think Slowik. Also, I watched the Bob's Burger movie because I thought that's what we were going to be talking about. So
I mean, cheeseburgers are a big part of both.
that's true.
In this film, Ray Fiennes plays Chef Julian Slowik, who's pretty similar to Fiennes' character Monsieur Gustave in the Grand Budapest Hotel. Both work in the service industry and are at the top of their respective professions. But first, I want to get started with a very good question. How do you feel about the word mouthfeel?
The mouthfeel of the mignonette.
Please don't say mouthfeel.
You only have so many words in your lexicon when it comes to getting at textural elements, right? So it serves a purpose.
How many ways could you describe food that you like besides just saying it's delicious? There's not too many different ways, or it would be difficult for me.
You can't just say good for the show. You have to embellish.
Yeah, well, you can break it down into of course the blocks, right? The major tasting elements, and the chef hints at this right in the movie. He talks about fat, salt, acid. What's the other one? Sugar and umami. Yeah, umami was like the more recent one they added in the 90s, and they're like, guys, it's the sixth sense. Yes, but yeah. So after that, you're kind of grasping at straws, so you're going to get some mouthfeel in there.
Speaking of restaurant terms, Janet McTeer plays a food critic in the film. Do restaurants tend to know when a food critic is dining, and does that affect the service provided? I guess in other words, will the staff put on a show for the critic when they're there?
Ooh, legally speaking, not able to answer. No, yeah, this is a whole thing. Prior to being at Agern, I was at Jean George, which was even loftier. I mean, they had 3 stars at the time that I was working there, and the front of house is a whole very organized machine, and they have recorded who's eaten with them before, their names, if they're regulars, things that they like, especially if once they're become real regulars, they might even have preferences noted. And they also have a list of just people who are known to be food critics. Sometimes that is public information. Sometimes it is information that who knows how they get it, but they have to go looking for it because Michelin Guide is supposed to be, for instance, Michelin Guide is supposed to be anonymous, right? But through some ways they get either hunches or in some cases actually knowledge about who is a Michelin Guide inspector, and that would not necessarily entail putting on a show, but they would definitely be like, you absolutely have to be on point because
you can't make a mistake tonight.
But in the case of knowing that a food inspector might be there, or sorry, a critic might be there, that would when you'd be the pressure would really be on to like take the extra 5 seconds to make sure that this plate looks exactly as it should. Don't dropping means placing. It's just an industry term, but don't bring a plate to the table without the silverware being there. I mean, that's very basic, but you know what I mean? Like all these, be on your P's and Q's basically.
Did the food critic in the movie, did she feel authentic to you, or did it feel kind of played up for dramatic purposes?
I honestly think that this whole thing is just for our benefit. I mean, us. That's why he texted me. And this is incredible.
You know, I don't know enough food critics is the thing. But, I mean, everyone is played up in that movie, right? So I think it's fine that she was a bit played up. And I certainly think those people exist, yes. And those people who are very full of themselves and think of themselves as part of the game, you know, like even though they're just the ones sort of writing about it, you know, fancy themselves an artist.
In the movie, they talk, as they're going through the quarters of where the people live, they talk about burnout. Have you experienced, or do you know if burnout is frequent in restaurant kitchens?
You guys ever get burnt out, or?
Burned out?
Oof. Yeah, definitely. I don't remember the statistics. I also went to the Culinary Institute of America, which was mentioned in the movie. But I think they give you some statistic when you graduate where they're like, look here, kids, only like 15% of you are still going to be working in the food industry like 10 years from now or something. And in large part, I think that tends to be really quite true. I haven't like crunched the numbers exactly, but just from anecdotal evidence of considering like where my friends are now from culinary school, some of them have stuck with it, but a lot of people do get out of it or make sort of pivots to adjacent food-related things. A lot of people go bartending because the money is much better. That scene in the quarters is a good example because, you know, it's very bare bones there, right? It's not a lot of lavish living, yet they are making food at the most, at least you're meant to imagine it being the most elite level, right? But it's funny, like, and this has become a whole discussion, of course, in recent years, couple of years, especially with the COVID situation in the restaurant world and how that kind of crippled the industry. It sort of came to light that it's what a lot of people already knew, which was that it's a very tough industry. I think people became even more aware of just how bad it was. I mean, I was working at a 3 Michelin star restaurant. I was making minimum wage, and it was, you know, basically I had money to cover rent, and that was about it. I mean, it wasn't like I wasn't in desperation or anything, but it is funny the paradox, right? And they get at this a lot in the movie too, which is that on the one hand you have this experience, yet the people who are making it are in a completely different situation. So yes, the burnout thing is really real, and for good reason.
Ray Fiennes is constantly his relationship with Anya Taylor-Joy when he just says, "You're a service worker, I can tell. You're not one of them." And them in the movie is kind of who you don't want to be, even though I guess that is who the audience is kind of sympathizing with, which is kind of an interesting aspect of the movie.
I thought that was, and I like kind of their relationship through the movie and how like early on they have kind of a moment. It's like almost borderline flirty, like a little bit like, I don't know. There's like something going on where they understand each other. No one is truly, I think, completely likable.
No.
Like you are meant to like take sympathy with the chef, certainly for for the way like these ungrateful people are partaking in the food, but at the same time, like he's clearly a crazy person, and
Yes.
and as are they all. Yes, setting people on fire is, not the thing to do. But
Speaking of that, do you think the fine dining world is cultish enough to plausibly convince about 20 employees to sign up for a suicide pact? Or is that, I guess, living on an island, they might have formed their own world. I do find that kind of the most implausible thing about the movie, but let me hear what you think.
oh well, I don't think it's as far as off as you might think. Especially in an isolate, like people develop like unhealthy, and this is getting it like relationships and levels of dedication to these projects because I don't know, like you're in it, and it is in a lot of ways so thankless that you kind of have to like once you're either committed or you find yourself questioning it all the time, and then you eventually will say like, well, why am I doing this? And then you get out, right? But when you're in it and you're super committed to it, like you just kind of have to have this laser focus, unquestionable thing. And I've good friends of mine, former coworkers who are still at places that that are very demanding and very hard to work at as far as like a commitment level and just a demand level. And I ask myself like, oh, I mean, I'm glad that I had that time and I like learned a lot and I learned a lot about work ethic and all that. But it's like so crazy to me that they're still in it. And I think that kind of ties into how you get into these situations, especially with you pair that with the like stardom and of certain celebrity chefs and the hype of certain places, and when you go throwing phrases around like world's best whatever, like, and you start to you get caught up in it, or otherwise like you just couldn't do it. Basically, if you don't believe in it to some extent, you couldn't really do it, at least not for very long. And then, the island thing is interesting. There was literally, I think it was in the Pacific Northwest, a restaurant, a high-caliber restaurant that was based on an island that had some unsavory news sort of come out about it. Same sort of situation. Culty leaders. I mean, the Me Too, plenty of like Me Too stuff in the chef world. Unfortunately.
Oh yeah, and they dig into that with in the movie with his assistant coming out and introducing the man's folly dish.
Yeah, I thought that was great. Yeah, and that actress, I'll just like, this is a good point to talk about how the things that I think they got right, if you would allow me, and I would say that definitely they picked like a great actor for that sous chef character, because her like sort of is it unhinged, but like also like laser focused sort of balance. Like I've met people like her before. It's so good. They're like, that definitely is a type, a character in the kitchen.
She has a great when the restaurant critic does compliment on her dish, she says at one point that would have meant a lot to me. But then you can see it actually does still mean a lot to her because she can't even look her in the eye and turns away.
Yeah.
In the man's folly scene where all the men are provided a chance to escape, do you think you could have escaped, or just in general put up more of a fight than the men in the movie?
To our male diners, we now offer you the chance to escape. You'll be given a 45-second head start.
45 seconds. It's tough. I think I would have like felt really confident going in, like high on adrenaline or something, and then slowly realize just like a slow like aching growing in your muscles as like they're coming down on you and you're not getting away.
Well, and Ray Fiennes does mention if you did, you could have put up more. You could have put up more of a fight. You probably could have
gotten away. That's a great funny moment too.
If they had worked together, granted, I mean, the kitchen staff, which they got real people with kitchen experience to basically be the extras in the movie. I don't know. They're kind of more than extras because they're actually doing a lot of cooking in the movie.
What do you people in Hollywood call them these days?
Cattle.
Oh, yes.
Cattle in the back of the scenes.
No, but that's another funny thing, a good detail, like, because at these elite level, like, super, like, places that only do maybe 10 tables a night, oftentimes the staff will be like that. Almost as many staff, if not, in some cases, more staff than patrons. So it would be a tricky situation, and rewatching it, you do ask yourself that same question again, and there's all these scenes of the dining room, and there's just like at both sides of the wall there seem to be two people like just in blue jackets, that's just like guarding the door, right? Then you have at least a dozen people in the kitchen. It would have to be, it would be basically a losing, like a war of attrition, a Pyrrhic victory, sort of, or even if that, like, not even, like, you're gonna go down swinging basically, because eventually they all kind of give in, which is funny, and it's funny to imagine them like still going through the motions even though they know they're gonna die. Like they're still eating the food, like, even in that last moment when they have the chocolate crown on. The assistant's like, still tasting, and I love that they all put their cards down. Like,
yes, they pay for the meal. They're still obeying Ray Fiennes, and I think that's why his casting is so good, that he does come across as someone who you would still obey even though you know that he has this devious plan against you.
Is it after he cuts the finger off that he presents a course and then everyone's kind of freaking out, but then he says, "Eat!" and then they all just start.
It's after the mess, and they set the mess down on the table, and everyone is freaking out, and he just screams, "Eat!" And one wonderful movement.
And people probably already know this, but the saying "yes, chef" in the kitchen is a very real thing.
Does everyone have to do it at the same time?
Depends on where you are. I did a trail at 11 Madison Park, which has been considered one of the finer restaurants and one of the more intense places to work. And back when I did that trail, trail is when you go in for the night to work for free and just kind of, it's like a working application. Basically, you come in and apply for a job, and they see if you like you, see if you vibe well with the crew. And every ticket that came in, basically the chef would announce like how many seats at the table it was. So a ticket would come in and he would say 4 top, and everyone would go, "Wait!" We in French, yes. And
okay.
Yeah, a lot of times it's even in American restaurants or in non-French restaurants, because the French culinary roots are so much a part of it that we is very common as well. But they would say "we" every ticket, and all in unison. Yeah. So, and I love that when I love you all, and they're like, "We love you too, chef." Like I laughed out loud at that. That was so good.
The Tyler cooking scene is my favorite part of the movie. Nicholas Hoult is really great at playing the fawning fan of Ray Fiennes, and I think a reason why it probably works is that it's a fantasy. It's of a service worker to their customer. Have you ever wanted to bring a troublesome customer into the kitchen and have them cook their own food?
No, I think what I'd just love would be if any number of sort of the most entitled people that I've ever encountered in a restaurant world to just literally work one restaurant job, even from like a diner to a fine restaurant. It doesn't matter, like, because people who have never done it, it's very obvious that they've never done it because they just don't understand like what happens at all, like the fundamentals. They think that if they can just like throw a temper tantrum, basically like the food will materialize or something, or that like, oh well, I want it now, so like it can jump the line of tickets or something.
I've heard you mention the idea of chef's hands a couple of times in your YouTube videos, and when I watched the movie for the first time and Ray Fiennes says chef's hands, I got excited and I was like, oh, I've heard that before. Can you talk about that for a little bit?
Sure. Well, you're just dealing with hot stuff much more often. continuously throughout the day. I mean, depending on it can go a couple different ways. Like chef's hand can be calloused hands, like because you're holding a knife all day long, and you have your finger resting on here, and so your finger's just like, and if you're going through, a mountain of vegetables, your fingers rubbing on a piece of metal, you end up with sort of I guess I was pointing at the wrong camera. You end up with a pretty serious callus here. Other things, just hot stuff, pulling stuff out of the oven, plating things with so in some cases, now fine dining people are gonna be like, why would you ever use your hands to plate something? Why weren't you using your tweezers? But in some cases, you handle food with your hands. In some cases, whether or not that's just like guiding French fries out of the basket into like the container that you're going to serve them in, or like grabbing an arancini or something out of the fryer. There are going to be situations where you touch hot things, and eventually you just kind of burn off some of those, at least outer surface nerves. You can still burn yourself. It's not like that's impossible, but
I do think it's a good metaphor for Ray Fiennes' character, where he's kind of like his body and soul is calloused, and it's a big reason why he decides what to do. He's just kind of after years of being fed up slowly by the customers and the business, he just breaks and convinces all of his staff to break as well.
There are no substitutions at Hawthorne. I thought that was very funny too.
Do you have any tips for cooking a great cheeseburger?
Yeah, you could make sure you don't deprive yourself of fat. I think somewhere in the range of, 85% lean, 15% fat. If you want to be extra indulgent, 20% fat, 80% lean. And it depends on what you kind of like, and don't be afraid to embrace what you like. I'm not like, I grew up with like well done steaks and well done burgers. So I've since come away from that, but I still I'm not crazy about like a big thick burger that's like rare in the middle. I'm kind of more into the smash burger world for sure. That's, like maybe it's a little pink, but for the most part, it's, it's just like a greasy piece of beef. Some people, I would say for the most part, you can season last moment, because ground beef is such that salted ahead, you get sort of a moisture drawn out effect.
Do you agree that American cheese is the best kind of cheese for a cheeseburger?
American cheese is the best cheese for a cheeseburger because it melts without splitting.
Probably impossible for me to answer that unbiasedly, but I think it's pretty great. We had at the more casual restaurant at John George and the Nicotine, their signature cheese was pepper jack, and I quite liked that actually, because
I like that too.
Little bit of heat. I think any decent melting cheese is gonna be nice. I think if you're gonna do a fancier burger, if you're gonna do like a situation where you had some like caramelized onions and mushrooms or something, then like Swiss cheese might be nice too. And I've seen some burgers out there that have like a blue cheese crumble with like a fried onion, like a pub burger or something. Also, your condiments are huge. Bun and condiments are huge, and that comes down to taste. But a good burger sauce, there's like really no secret to it. Usually if you take some mayonnaise and ketchup and maybe some hot sauce and throw a couple other things in there, and keep tasting it, you're going to arrive at something that's pretty tasty that you can call burger sauce,
I love onions on a burger, and
yeah,
at In-N-Out I get the raw onions with the grilled onions, and
good combo.
I think for most people it might be too much onions, but I like it.
Not for the ladies I hang out with.
You have to brush your teeth immediately afterwards.
Thank you for dining with us tonight.
Well, Tristan, do you have anything else that you'd like to say about the film The Menu, starring Ray Fiennes?
It was a lot of fun. I think I've heard some people saying, I think you were one of them, said that maybe they could have pushed even a little more. They could have even gone a little more graphic, to make it even more of like a slasher.
if they had not all died in the end, and if the movie had kind of every 20 minutes kicked off a patron from the cast,
Yeah.
like when they had the angel investor and they dipped him in the lake, that's a great death, but we don't really know who that character is, really. So
Yeah.
if that had been, if the angel investor had been one of with the finance bros at the table, that I think it would have been better. But I think it is a sign of them pulling their punches a little bit, making the movie itself more palatable, for pun intended, for a general audience.
I think that the world of like food-based entertainment is only just getting, going. As far as there's not so much out there that kind of pokes fun, and I've long said that like there's room in the world for like poking fun at this whole thing because it just is pretty ridiculous. At the end of the, and I say that as a person who's worked in it and loves it and all that, but like if you can't see at least a little bit of acknowledge a little bit of the ridiculous of it at times, then you might end up on an island setting people on fire. You got to be careful. Other things that I thought it really got right, just like the people in the dining room, I thought it was perfect. If you've ever been to, like any super, usually high-end fine dining restaurant, you're going to run into these types. You're going to have the old money, and that couple is there, and they're just kind of there because we heard this is great. Oh, yeah, we come all the time. And they're just sort of like talking about, I saw this person at the drugstore the other day or whatever. And it's the rest of it's sort of washing over them. Then you have the new money. You have like the finance type, computer programmer type, whatever guys who are just there, and they have their, they're very dressed, and they're kind of, they're kind of rude, kind of bro-y. And then you have the Tyler type who fancies himself, like a foodie just from eating and having a Paco Jet, for instance. Early on in the film, you kind of gravitate towards him a little bit because you're like, I like fine dining, like I like appreciating things. I'm like him, but then you realize he's like obnoxious, and then you realize that maybe you yourself have been obnoxious in a restaurant before, just like trying to get too much into it.
Well, Tristan, thank you for joining me. Can you tell the folks about your YouTube channel, Cooking with Tristan?
Oh, very nice. So yes, we have a YouTube channel together called Cooking with Tristan. I'm Tristan, as you probably heard at the beginning. And we have a lot of fun with it. There's no true limit to what we will make or won't make. And I've been saying it's a young channel for about a year now, but I'd still say it's a young channel, and we're still excited to cook more and more things. But yeah, we just have fun with it. I do a bit of traveling. I live in Europe now, so I'm lucky enough to be able to kind of bounce around a little bit. I've made a few videos in France, and I like to travel when I'm cooking, and I like to I do a narration over it. This is sort of scary for me because normally I type up a script and have a whole long-winded thing.
Yeah, me too. The world is seeing our faces.
Yeah, the world's seeing our faces and seeing us go, at least me, go, and I don't write a lot of uhs.
It'll just be a supercut of you going,
So yeah, go check it out. Cooking with Tristan. It's it's a peaceful. I would call it a peaceful yet informative. Or if you just want to kind of veg out and watch me cut some stuff and talk about it and ramble about either things that this particular dish that I'm cooking reminds me of, or memories that it evokes, or whatever, then there's room for you there too. So come on by. Like, comment, subscribe.
Listen to him. Goodbye.
Thanks for having me.
Tristan, thanks so much for joining me. You can find a link to his YouTube channel, Cooking with Tristan, in the description box below. And full disclosure, I do edit those YouTube videos, so it would also be a boon to me if you check that out. And lastly, thank you to all the subscribers. Couldn't have done it without you. Thank you for joining me on this journey through Wes Anderson and Alfred Hitchcock. I'll be back soon with another director video, but until next time, the Sarris wheel spins on.